Jai Gang crossed his arms and told Yu Xiaok that he was leaving the rest in her hands. Upon hearing this, she responded with a understood. Then, she raised her hands towards the sky, causing a green energy to emanate and form a barrier. She turned her head to the side and explained to everyone that she had placed a protective barrier against espionage around the headquarters so that they could all speak freely without worrying about being spied on. Jiang simply stood still, began to look at her, and couldn't help but wonder what kind of power this was. In a matter of seconds, her power started expanding in all directions, causing the protective barrier to become increasingly larger. Jai Gang approached Jiang, placed his hand on his shoulder, closed his eyes, and with a pleasant smile asked him if there was something he was hiding, adding that they were all here to help him. The others listened attentively in silence. Jiang lowered his head, began to touch his head with his hand, and with a sad look revealed to everyone that yesterday he had killed Xiao Yuanwu from the Xiao family. Although he had completely eliminated the traces and the body of him, he wasn't sure if the Xiao family had other methods of investigation and tracking. Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked. Jane Tang began to look at Jiang with a terrified expression and asked him if he had really eliminated a member of the Xiao family. Jai Gang reached out his hand towards him, started looking at him with a surprised expression, and asked him if he had killed Xiao Yuanshen's grandson, the cultivator who was in the 8th stage of Zhenguo. Chu Buling couldn't help but be shocked and started wondering how strong Jiang was to have killed a member of the Xiao family. Jiang, who was touching his head with his hand, upon seeing their expressions, thought that he had now caused problems for everyone. Jai Gang began to look at Jiang and explained to everyone that it was well known that the Xiao family had committed many evil acts. The young members of the Xiao family had caused many problems in recent years. He couldn't help but praise him for doing good by protecting people. He crossed his arms and with a serious look, he remembered that the power of the 8th transformation was undoubtedly terrifying. But according to what he knew, his last grandson was Xiao Yuanwu, the most incompetent and least favorite of him. That being said, it was possible that old Xiao Yuanshen would not personally intervene. Jane Tang, who had one hand on her waist, extended the other towards him and started looking at him with a determined gaze. She asked him not to worry because if the Xiao family sent someone, they, the Night Watch, would protect him since they were not weak. Jiang began to look at Jai Gang with a pleasant gaze and couldn't help but smile and feel happy. He was an orphan, and even though he had had neighbors who had helped him since he was little, this was the first time he felt like having a home. Jai Gang turned his back on him, started to walk away, slightly turned his head towards him and thought that even if Xiao Yuanwu was useless, he probably had already reached the 2nd level of cultivation. He quickly approached Jiang, grabbed him by the shoulders, started looking into his eyes, and with a surprised look asked him how he had managed to kill someone of level 30 in the combat class, being an awakened person of level 17 in the creation class. Jiang became somewhat nervous, started sweating, extended his hand towards him and asked him not to get too excited because actually, at that moment, someone had helped him. Upon hearing this, Jai Gang asked him who had helped him. Jiang put his hand behind his head, closed his eyes, and with a forced smile, he revealed that the 3rd daughter of the Luo family who lived in Jiangnan had been the person who had helped him. He also added that she had awakened a hidden defense class. Upon hearing this, everyone started looking at Jiang with a surprised look and couldn't help but wonder if he was talking about Luo Sandao, the daughter of the wealthiest merchant family in Jiangnan, the Luo family. Jai Gang approached Jiang, grabbed him by the shoulders again, started shaking him, closed his eyes and with a pleasant smile, praised him because even though the Luo family was not a family of warriors, it couldn't be denied that they were rich. So if someday Jiang found himself in trouble, then the Luo family wouldn't just stand idly by. He began to look at Jai Gang and couldn't help but sweat and wonder what he was doing. At that moment, Jiang's body began to emit a powerful purple energy. Several seconds later, once Jai Gang opened his eyes, he saw that Jiang's body was surrounded by a powerful energy. Quickly, he removed his hands from his shoulder, and upon seeing this, he couldn't help but be shocked. As sweat was dripping from his face, he began to look at him with a surprised expression and remembered that Luo Sandao had awakened the defense class, so she didn't have much attacking power, which meant that the person who had killed Yuanwu had been Jiang. Jiang extended his hand forward, and the poisonous mist of Little Nine appeared in his palm. He began to stare at it, revealing to everyone that he was actually an awakened person specialized in 2 classes. He revealed to everyone that his other hidden class was poison. Dunfeng, who was standing behind him, started looking at him with a surprised expression and couldn't help but be shocked and wonder what this power was. Jai Gang tried to shake Jiang's hand, asking him how many more secrets he had that he didn't know. But Jiang moved his hand aside because in the palm of his hand was the poisonous mist of Little Nine, and he explained that this was very poisonous, fearing that he wouldn't be able to resist it. The others stayed silent, observing this without interrupting. Just before Jiang could finish his sentence, Jai Gang approached him, shook his hand, then closed his eyes and with a smile reassured him not to worry because he knew how to defend himself well against poisons. Little Nine's poisonous mist gradually began to make contact with Jai Gang's hand. Jane Tang started to stare at their hands, and upon seeing this, she couldn't help but wonder what this strange poison was. Several seconds later, once Jai Gang stopped shaking his hand and pulled it back, he saw that his hand had already been poisoned. Upon seeing this, he realized that this was not good. Jiang put his hand on his shoulder, closed his eyes, and told him that this time he had gone too far. Gradually, the poisonous mist began to spread over his hand. He grabbed his wrist with the other hand, stared at Jiang aggressively, and asked him to stop talking nonsense since he hadn't even tried to defend himself against the poison from the beginning. Upon hearing this, Jane Tang, who was standing behind him, closed her eyes and started laughing. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chu Buling sat near Jai Gang's hand and began staring at it intently while wondering what this poison was. Quickly, Jai Gang turned his head back to where Xiao Qi was and asked her to come quickly and help him get rid of the poison. Xiao Qi, who had one hand extended to the side, deactivated the barrier, causing the energy to slowly disappear. She put her other hand near her mouth, closed her eyes, and while laughing she responded to him with a yes. Jiang reminded him again that he had told him that this poison was very strong. He sat on the couch, and while he had one hand resting on his knee, he extended the other where he had the poison to the side. Xiao Qi approached him, closed her eyes, and with a smile, she placed both hands near his hand and using her power, began to heal him. While she was healing him, he turned his head towards Jiang, closed his eyes, and with a forced smile told him that this poison was very good, adding that the more skills he had, the happier he would be. Chu Buling approached them, placed both hands on the arm of the sofa, started staring at Jiang and silently observed him. Several seconds later, once Xiao Qi had completely healed his hand, with a serious look, he began to look at Jiang, and despite him being very talented, he advised him to forget about enrolling in the Tanjiao camp since it was not good to enroll after what had happened with the Xiao family. Although the Tanjiao camp offered many valuable resources, it was most likely that the prodigy of the Xiao family would also participate, so they should not risk it for just a few resources. Jane Tang, who was standing behind him, put a hand on her waist, closed her eyes and began nodding to indicate to him that Jai Gang was right. Jiang started looking at Jai Gang with a confused look and asked what he meant by resources. While he had his eyes closed, he explained to him that resources referred to the blood of fierce beasts, equipment, and other things. If one could be among the first, then they would also receive rewards such as mysterious fruits and secrets realms scrolls. Upon hearing this, Jiang couldn't help but be shocked and wonder if what Jai Gang was saying was true. He began to imagine the insects and thought that those resources were much better than going out to hunt fierce beasts oneself. No one knew, perhaps the insects could reproduce again at that moment. While his body was surrounded by the poisonous mist, he began to stare at Jai Gang with a serious look and asked him to let him enroll in the camp, as he was not afraid of danger. He had confidence and knew that he would be able to protect himself. Upon hearing this, Jai Gang asked him to wait as he needed to think about it. At the same time, somewhere on the west lake belonging to the Xiao family, there was a temple in the middle of the lake. Someone entered the water and using their power moved it aside, creating a large crack in the ground. This person started approaching the temple. This person was Xiao Jia Tanjiao's son named Xiao Beihan. Upon seeing how powerful he was, the others realized that he was the strongest genius in the Xiao family, and his combat power had reached a new level. As drops of the water from the lake fell like rain, Beihan, who held a sword with one hand, turned his head back and with a serious look, asked his subordinates to stop talking nonsense, and also asked if they had found what they were looking for. 3 men wearing hoods placed their hands on their abdomen, bowed their heads before him, closed their eyes, and one of them revealed to him that he had found out that the young master Yuan Wu had been pursuing a woman named Luo Sandao. He also added that she had been traveling with someone named Jiang Chen. Beihan slightly turned his head back and with a serious look remembered that the girl from the Luo family was not from the combat class. He asked his subordinate who this guy called Jiang Chen was. The man revealed that Jiang Chen had awakened a creation class of divine rank. The last thing they knew was that he had gone to the Night Watch headquarters. One of the men placed a hand on his chest, bowed his head before him, closed his eyes and revealed that they had discovered that he and Luo Sandao had enrolled in the camp. He also added that however these 2 people were only suspects and there was still no concrete evidence. Upon hearing this, Beihan couldn't help but smile. With a penetrating gaze, he began to look to the side and thought that they were indeed suspects in this crime. A person who had awakened a creation class of divine rank was very interesting to him. Knowing that they had enrolled in the camp, he couldn't help but feel relieved, as now he wouldn't have any need to make a special trip and search for them. After 3 days, he simply decided to kill them at the camp. At the same time, at the Night Watch headquarters, Jai Gang and Jiang went to his office and sat on the sofa. Jai Gang, who had one arm resting on his knee, extended his other hand to the side, began staring intently at Jiang, and explained that even though he had already enrolled him in the Tanjiao camp, he was still very worried. He had already found a powerful ally among the people registered for him. This person was the little princess Mu Hankwi from the Mu family, who had cultivation at the 7th level of transformation and was known as the Sealing Queen. Before going to camp, Jiang had to accompany her to explore a secret realm, in which he would not only be able to improve his level but also establish relationships with his companions in advance. Jiang, who was sitting in front of him with his elbows resting on the arms of the sofa, simply remained silently listening. Jai Gang approached him, took his hand, started looking at him, and with a smile explained to him that he had heard that Mu Hankwi was not only extremely beautiful but also the same age as him. She would be arriving soon, so he asked Jiang to use his charms to win her over. Upon hearing this, Jiang couldn't help but start sweating and become somewhat confused. He forced a smile at Jai Gang and replied that he was going to give it a try. At the same time, someone began knocking on the office door and Jai Gang gave them permission to enter. Mu Hankwi and a man opened the door and began to enter inside. She rested her elbow on one hand, supported her head on the other hand, and started looking at Jiang. She told them that Jai Gang had asked her to accompany someone to a secret realm. The man put his hand behind his head, closed his eyes, and started smiling. She asked Jai Gang if he had changed his mind. Jai Gang told her that it was an honor for them to meet her in person. Mu Hankwi crossed her arms and began to look at the ground, feeling somewhat confused. The man started touching his head and smiling. Seeing this, Jiang couldn't help but wonder what was happening. Both stood up. Jai Gang rested his arm on Jiang's shoulder, put the other one on his waist, started looking at her and explained that he hadn't answered them yesterday because he was angry with her grandfather. But today he was willing to accept this, but with a special condition. That condition was that she had to take Jiang Chen with her. Upon hearing this, Jiang's expression changed drastically. He couldn't help but be somewhat surprised and start wondering what was happening. Mu Hankwi placed her hand on her hip, and as she walked towards them, she told him that she had already given him the level 30 Secret Realm scroll. After saying this, she asked if he still wanted to impose more conditions. Jai Gang, who had his hand resting on Jiang's shoulder, told her that everyone had their own conditions. Upon hearing this, she thought that he was looking for someone reliable to level up with, since Jiang couldn't enter a secret realm lower than level 50. She came to the conclusion that they were looking for her for this reason. The man put his arms behind his back, and with a smile, he began to walk towards them in silence. She approached Jiang, started looking into his eyes, and asked him what level he was and what class he had awakened. He began to look at her, and with a calm voice, he explained that he was level 17 and had awakened the creation class. Upon hearing this, she placed a hand on her waist, started pointing at Jiang with the other hand, looked at him disdainfully, and upon seeing that he was a level 17 novice of the creation class, she called him trash. Jiang couldn't help but get angry and think that she was a spoiled brat. Jai Gang exploded with rage, clenched his fist tightly, and with a hateful look, he prepared to teach her a good lesson. He called her an empty-headed brat and asked her to show more respect, since Jiang had awakened a hidden divine rank. Seeing this, the other man grabbed him by the hip, closed his eyes, and with a forced smile asked him to calm down, explaining that Mu Hankwi's boyfriend had just left her and that's why she was behaving this way. She turned her head back, and upon seeing this, she couldn't help but start to feel scared. She thought that this time she had gone too far. Jiang turned his head towards Jai Gang, and upon seeing his attitude, he couldn't help but be somewhat surprised and confused at the same time. She became nervous, turned her body towards him, closed her eyes, extended her hands towards him, apologized to him and asked him to calm down. Jiang started touching his head with his hand and thought that this situation was strange. To the secret realm they were going to was called the Village of Light. It was level 30, and the entry requirements were that only a maximum of 5 people below level 50 could enter. The conditions to complete this secret realm were to eliminate all the monsters, kill the boss, or destroy the sacrifice altar. Several hours later, they arrived at the portal. Duan Feng, who had one hand on his waist, turned his head towards them and with a serious look asked everyone to listen carefully. This time he was going to be the leader. He asked everyone to remember that if they accidentally separated or found themselves in danger, then they should immediately return to this teleportation point. Although the probability of this secret realm becoming unstable was low, caution had to be taken. In case of any eventuality, everyone had to return here immediately and leave the secret realm. Muhankwi, who had her arms crossed, began looking at him with a smile as she silently listened. Chu Buling approached Jiang, reached out his hand towards the portal, closed his eyes, and with a smile told him that a level 30 secret realm scroll cost at least 1 billion. Xiaoqi, who was holding onto her elbow with her other hand, also stayed silent listening. Muhankwi, who had her arms crossed, turned her head back and started looking at Jiang. She called him a newbie and asked him not to start crying like a baby after entering the secret realm because it would only hold them back. Jiang simply started staring at her and remained silent. Everyone entered the portal. Chu Buling turned his head back and with a smile, asked him not to worry as he would take care of protecting him. Jiang began walking towards the portal, and despite this secret realm being only level 30, he had a strange feeling. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.